Lucille Ball and her final interview sit together in the same memory now, a memory that feels both luminous and unbearably fragile. She walked into that studio carrying the weight of a lifetime that had made the world laugh, yet her eyes revealed a truth she had spent decades carefully protecting. She had been America's brightest spark, the woman who turned ordinary moments into living magic. But age had softened her voice and revealed the quiet ache behind every smile. The cameras captured a legend, still determined, still luminous, yet something in her posture hinted at a story she had never fully told. She spoke of courage, of survival, of the price she paid for becoming a symbol of joy. Each word seemed to travel through every year she had fought to remain strong, yet the strength that once came effortlessly now carried a tremble. Viewers expected nostalgia, but what they received was a lifetime unraveling in real time. It was not the jokes or the memories that left everyone in tears, but the moment she finally revealed the truth she had held closest to her heart, a truth no one expected to hear, not even then. Long before Lucille Ball became the woman who made America laugh, she was a child shaped by wounds the world never saw. Born in 1911 in Jamestown, New York, she entered life with a hunger for stability that she would chase for decades. Her earliest memories carried the warmth of a young family trying to build a modest life, but that promise shattered when she was only 3. Her father's sudden death carved the first empty space in her heart, a space she would spend years trying to fill with strength, with work, with humor. It was the moment her childhood tilted, the moment loss became her first silent teacher. Her mother, still grieving, threw herself into long hours of whatever work she could find. There were days when Lucille clung to the edges of rooms watching adults struggle to keep the family afloat. There were nights when she listened for footsteps, hoping for reassurance that never quite came. Those years molded her into someone who understood uncertainty far too early. She learned to adapt, to move, to adjust her expectations every time life relocated her without warning. Stability became a dream she could picture but not touch. Yet something inside her refused to stay small. She grew into a teenager who studied people with a sharp, observant eye. She noticed the way a lifted eyebrow changed a mood, the way timing could ease tension, the way a single gesture could rewrite an entire moment. Still, she hid these instincts behind a quiet facade, a facade that her early teachers in drama school misunderstood. When she arrived in New York City determined to train as an actress, she was labeled too shy, too stiff, not talented enough. The criticism hit her harder than she ever admitted, but it also lit a stubborn fire. She had already survived grief. Rejection would not break her. To support herself, she took every job she could find. Modeling, chorus lines, work that kept the lights on but rarely fed her spirit. She posed for photographs that celebrated her beauty, but inside she felt unseen. She danced through routines with other chorus girls, counting steps long after her legs ached. Every paycheck reminded her that survival still came before dreams. But during those years something remarkable began to form. She learned how to hold her own, how to command a room, how to study timing with the precision of someone who had already learned that life only rewarded those willing to endure. Hollywood arrived in small pieces. Bit parts in films throughout the 1930s introduced her to a new world, one where she blended into the background, yet watched everything with fierce attention. She absorbed lessons from seasoned performers, studying their rhythm, studying their instinct for humor, studying the way a scene came alive when someone dared to take a risk. She did not know it yet, but her gift for comedy, her ability to transform awkwardness into gold, was taking shape quietly. Every stumble became material. Every rejection sharpened her resolve. But beneath her growing confidence lived a deeper question, a question she carried from childhood to sound stage. Her early wounds had taught her to survive, but they had also taught her to hide. She learned to perform strength, instead of revealing the soft places she protected. She built herself from grit and hope, yet she wondered, Even then, what such relentless determination might cost her. Hollywood would soon have its answer. The audience would see only the brilliance. She would feel the price. By 1951, Lucille Ball had become more than an actress. She had become a force that reshaped television itself. The premiere of I Love Lucie marked the moment when the world finally saw the genius she had been quietly forging through years of hardship and perseverance. Audiences laughed at her antics, marveled at her timing, and fell in love with the brightness she carried into every home. But behind the cameras, the truth was far less effortless. Every joke, every pratfall, every sparkling smile came at the cost of exhaustion few could imagine. Lucille was not content to simply perform. She demanded excellence, precision, and innovation. Multi-camera filming, live audiences, episodes recorded in sequence. She fought for these practices, not because they were easy, but because they allowed her art to shine. Founding Desi Productions gave her authority, yes, but also responsibility. A mantle heavier than any Hollywood award. She became the face of an entire industry, the standard by which television comedy would be judged for generations. And yet, as the accolades accumulated, so did the pressure. The world saw only laughter. No one saw the hours she spent rehearsing until her muscles ached, the relentless editing, the late nights spent ensuring every episode met her impossibly high standards. Perfectionism became a shield, a way to protect herself from criticism, but it also built walls between her and those closest to her. Work demanded so much that marriage and motherhood often felt like secondary roles. She juggled them with grace, yes, but the grace was learned, not effortless. There were mornings when exhaustion outweighed joy, evenings when a quiet house echoed louder than applause. Running a major studio was meant to be an achievement, a crown of authority and accomplishment, yet it often delivered isolation instead. Decisions rested on her shoulders. Success demanded sacrifices she rarely acknowledged. And even as her confidence in her abilities grew, her happiness sometimes seemed to fade beneath the weight of expectation. She had built a world that adored her, but she had not built a world that could sustain her own emotional needs. The laughter was there always, but the quiet moments that might have nourished her heart were few and fleeting. Lucille's brilliance came at a cost only she fully understood. Every joke, every triumph, every trail she blazed required something of her that fame could not restore. The laughter she produced for millions did not fill the silence she sometimes felt at night. The applause could not replace companionship or ease. And yet she continued, because giving up was never an option. Excellence demanded persistence, and persistence demanded courage. Still, beneath the triumph, a lingering question remained, unspoken even to herself during the brightest days of success. The world celebrated her genius, her innovation, her place in television history. But as she gazed across stages and studio sets, as she measured her own reflection against the mirror of expectation, a quiet ache whispered beneath it all. By the late 1980s, Lucille Ball carried the weight of decades in a body that had grown frailer, though her presence remained magnetic. She arrived at the studio for her final interview with a careful grace, her steps measured, her hands betraying the subtle tremor of years spent performing at the edge of exhaustion. The lights, cameras, and microphones surrounded her like old friends, yet this time the spotlight revealed more than laughter. It revealed a woman who had lived, endured, and survived far more than anyone could imagine. From the moment she began speaking, Lucille's voice held the quiet gravity of someone reflecting on a lifetime spent in the public eye. She spoke candidly about aging, in an industry that had always celebrated youth, where novelty often overshadowed experience. Every story she shared carried the soft ache of realization that the same energy that had propelled her to greatness also demanded sacrifices invisible to the millions who adored her. The world had seen her strength, her innovation, her brilliance, but it had rarely glimpsed the quiet exhaustion beneath. She reflected on the time lost with her children, The small moments swallowed by rehearsals, studio calls, and relentless tours of duty to a career that never paused. Fame had filled rooms, yes, with laughter and applause, but it had also emptied the private corners of her life, leaving gaps no script could fill. Her eyes, usually bright and mischievous, sometimes clouded with the weight of what could never be recovered. And yet she spoke with honesty, a courage shaped by years of self-discipline and reflection, revealing not triumphs alone, but the tender spaces where regret quietly lingered. Memories of forgotten friendships surfaced, the names and faces of colleagues and confidants she had lost touch with over decades. She recounted them not with bitterness, but with gentle sorrow, a recognition of the costs exacted by ambition and fame. The walls she had built around herself, walls of perfectionism, control, and relentless drive, began to soften under the steady weight of confession. For the first time in years, perhaps for the first time in public, she allowed vulnerability to take the stage alongside the skill and humor that had defined her. As the interview progressed, Lucille's guard dropped further. She acknowledged the quiet regrets that fame could not erase, the birthdays missed, the evenings alone, the unspoken apologies that never found a listener. Her laughter, once effortless, now carried a tremor of memory, a reminder that even a life adored by millions could feel incomplete in private. The cameras captured every subtle shift, every pause heavy with reflection, as if the years themselves were leaning in to be heard. And then, with a steady inhale, her gaze shifted beyond the lens, beyond the studio, and a hushed tension settled over the room. It was in that moment, suspended between courage and fear, that she hinted at what had never been spoken aloud. The audience leaned forward, sensing the weight of decades, the culmination of a life lived both brilliantly and painfully. But there was one truth she had kept buried for decades, one she was finally ready to face. The interviewer asked what she would change if she could live her life again, a question that hung in the room like a gentle weight. Lucille Ball paused, the full measure of her years settling into her chest. Her eyes, usually sparkling with humor, lowered, and for a moment the bright performer gave way to the woman who had carried decades of unspoken truths. The silence stretched, not uncomfortable, but heavy with anticipation, as if everyone present sensed the significance of what was about to emerge. Her voice, soft but steady, carried the weight of reflection and a fragile vulnerability. She admitted she had spent too many years proving herself, striving to meet expectations that were never truly her own. The work had demanded perfection, the relentless pursuit of excellence, and every gesture, pause, and step had been calculated to maintain the brilliance the world adored. Yet in that brilliance, she had surrendered something irreplaceable, the simple, unguarded moments that make life whole. She reflected on the time lost with her children, the dinners missed, the quiet evenings that slipped by unnoticed. Fame had filled rooms with applause, yet emptied her personal world, leaving a silent ache that even laughter could not fill. The audience could see it in the subtle tremor of her hands, the brief falter in her voice, the gentle heaviness in her gaze. Every pause, every careful breath, revealed a life lived in the glare of expectation, where personal joy often took a back seat to professional triumph. Time became the central theme of her reflection, the one element she could never control. She recognized that careers could be built, legacies created, and industries reshaped, but time moved forward regardless. The years had passed, leaving behind the choices she made, and the moments she could not reclaim. Each pause carried the echo of her life, the victories entwined with the quiet regrets that had shadowed her brilliance for decades. And then came the confession, quiet yet seismic in its honesty. She acknowledged pride in the laughter she had given but revealed a deeper longing. She wished she had loved her own life as fully as the audience had loved her. The room fell silent, a hush that carried the weight of decades, of applause and absence, triumph and tender regret. In that instant, the performance ended and the truth emerged. The human heart of Lucille Ball, laid bare, luminous and achingly real. Her eyes lifted with a small, knowing smile, the faint curve of recognition and release softening her features. In that final revelation, she had stripped away every mask, leaving only herself, vulnerable, brilliant, flawed, and wholly human. The confession lingered, felt as deeply as it was heard. Her words changed how the world understood her. Lucille Ball passed in 1989, but the echo of her final interview continues to resonate far beyond the laughter she once commanded. In life, she had transformed television, pioneering techniques, storytelling, and performance that shaped an entire industry. The multi-camera format, live studio audience, and her fearless approach to comedic timing became benchmarks for generations of entertainers. Yet it was not only her innovations that defined her legacy. It was the courage to reveal the woman behind the persona, the human heart beneath the red hair and sparkling eyes. Her confession in that final interview humanized her in ways no sitcom could. Audiences who had admired her for decades suddenly glimpsed her private struggle, her longing, and the quiet regrets that had shadowed her brilliance. In revealing the ways she had prioritized career over simple, irreplaceable moments, she became more than an icon. She became a mirror. Viewers, whether young or old, recognized in her words their own reflections on aging, time, and the choices that shape a life. The laughter she gave to millions now carried a dual meaning: celebration and caution, triumph and tender vulnerability. Honesty became her lasting inheritance. Where previously her genius was measured in ratings, syndication, and awards, it was now measured in truth. Every story she told, every pause, every heartfelt reflection became part of the tapestry of her life. A life reframed not solely by comedy, but by authenticity. Her audience, long captivated by her performance, was invited to understand the woman she had been behind the laughter. The woman who had loved, who had lost, and who had ultimately chosen to share her most private realization. In that act of courage, her legend gained depth, color, and a profoundly human resonance. The final interview shifted the lens through which the world saw her. Lucille was no longer only television's beloved star. She was a testament to resilience, to vulnerability, and to the beauty of living fully, even amidst regrets. Her words encouraged reflection, reminding viewers that even the most dazzling successes cannot substitute for presence, for attention, for care in the small moments that truly shape a life. She became a symbol not of effortless joy but of truth, showing that laughter, though radiant and essential, is inseparable from the human heart that creates it. As the memory of her voice lingers, one truth crystallizes above all: her last words were more than emotional. They were a reminder of what matters most. In confessing her deepest reflections, Lucille Ball left the world a gift far greater than comedy alone. She left a legacy of honesty, courage, and the enduring power of embracing the entirety of one's life, with all its brilliance and all its quiet, aching truths. And even now, decades later, her message continues to guide, to comfort, and to illuminate, long after the laughter fades. Lucille Ball's laughter changed the world, but it was her honesty in that final interview that transformed the way we remember her. She had spent decades lighting up screens, making households across the nation erupt with joy. Yet it was in revealing her regrets, her vulnerabilities, and her longing for the simple, unrecorded moments that she truly touched hearts. Her courage to speak her truth offered a mirror to anyone who had ever felt the quiet ache of time slipping away, of love unspoken, of choices that could never be reclaimed. In sharing her innermost reflections, Lucille reframed her entire life story. She became not just a symbol of brilliance and comedic genius, but a reminder of what it means to live fully, honestly, and with courage. Her legacy, preserved in syndication and in the countless performers she inspired, carries both laughter and truth. The woman who gave the world so much joy also gave a final gift, an invitation to cherish life beyond applause, to embrace love, and to honor the moments that truly matter. For more emotional stories, check out this video.